Well, hello there and welcome to our Introduction to the Final Project in the CIS-72B CSS class. This video is intended to help get you started on the right direction for the final project. It is a pretty big assignment, so I think some guidance will get you going in the direction that you need and get you a head start. So I'm in Blackboard here, obviously. I'm going to go to the assignments page. That's where we'll find the final project. Scroll down to the bottom and you can see there's a bunch of links and some downloads as well. We'll first of all link over to the instructions, which is the first main link here, and scroll through and you can see there's a lot of detailed instructions for this assignment. And basically this is kind of like a reference. It's got the general information that you need, and then as you work your way through bits and pieces of the project, if you're in doubt about what you need to do for a particular section, you can go in here and see all the details. So we'll keep this around as a reference as we continue. Let's go back now to Blackboard, and we're going to get the download of the starter website. So basically I'm giving you a website full of HTML without any CSS, and your job is to style it up and give it that theme that you've chosen already and began to work with in the last part of assignment 3. So I'm going to click on that zip file and download it, and we can see what we're given as a starting point. And at the same time, I also want to draw your attention to the last link in this list here, which is the grading document. It's a very valuable document to keep in mind as you begin and end your project. So I'm going to click on that as well. That's a Word document, and it's basically kind of the condensed version of the instructions. It's like a checklist of all the little things you need to do or can do to get as many points as you like. Keep in mind, this project is at first glance rather large, a lot of things to do, but there's 50 points of extra credit built into it. It's really a 300-point assignment with 350 points worth of stuff. So conceivably you can leave out a lot of stuff and still do very well points wise. So let's take a look. I'm going to open up these downloaded documents here. This first one is the grading document. This is what I'm going to use to grade your work. At the same time, you can use it as a checklist of the things that you need to do. I'm going to increase the zoom level a little bit here because it is quite small in order to fit on one page. So it's broken up into little sections with little points for each item, so you can kind of just check them off as you do them, and always be aware of how many points you're getting or not getting if you decide to skip something. The basic stuff about lateness and due dates and times and points and stuff is all at the top. And then we get into 3 major sections. The first section is about HTML changes, and I want to make something clear about the HTML changes. First of all, the goal really here is to not make very many HTML changes at all. In fact, you can lose points for changing stuff you're not supposed to. So there's this one little area where you've got about 20 points worth of little changes to customize a few little areas of the web page. Otherwise, you're supposed to do everything with CSS. So keep the HTML intact except for this little section where you're given directions on what to change. For example, you need to put your hotel's name into the website in every place that it's appropriate, because it says whatever hotel, actually the words whatever hotel in the standard basic startup site, and you need to replace that with your own hotel name. So that's a quick find and replace feature basically, and you get 4 points for doing that. And so on. That's the first section, all the HTML changes. The second section is called Common Styles, and those changes are going to go in a style sheet you're given called common.css. It's worth 200 points if you add up all the changes that you're asked to do. Again, you can choose to do some of these and skip over others if you like, because you've got 350 points to work with overall on this 300-point assignment. So you can see that there's separate number of points given for each one of these. There's a little explanation. If the little explanation here is not enough for you to understand what to do, then you go back to the detailed instructions, which has a much longer write-up on each one of these and can fill you in with those details as needed. And then the third main section here is called custom styles. Those styles go into a separate style sheet called custom.css, and the difference between common and custom is just that the common portion up here, those are styles that affect every page in the website. There are 6 pages in the hotel website, and then custom styles are styles that you are writing to make changes in the formatting of a particular page because that page has some features that are unusual to the rest of the website. And then there are a couple other general grading points, such as the overall quality of your CSS code, including whether it validates or not, whether it's easy to read, whether things are placed in the proper sections, and so forth. And we'll again see some more examples of this later. Also, site design, your theme integration, color coordination, stuff like that. So there's a little bit of points just overall on how well you did on your design integration, but most of it's based on following the directions and inserting the styles necessary to satisfy these requirements. Let's go now to the downloaded starter files. Okay, I have my downloads here, so I'm going to show that in the downloaded folder, and then I'm going to move that. I'm going to unzip and move those website starter files to an easier place to access them than the download area. I'm going to put those on my desktop. So I'm extracting and moving them simultaneously here, and then on my desktop I can find them. The folder is called Your Name CSS Final Project, and one of the first things you might want to do with that is to insert your own name where it says your name. And eventually you'll zip that back up when you're all done with it and submit it into Blackboard as your completed final project. For now, I'm going to open that folder up and take a look at what we have. These are the files that you're given. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different web pages making up the website. I've got a couple of images, then I've got those 2 custom and common.css style sheet files. We want to take a look at those. First, let's take a look at the site as it is given to you in the browser. Now, obviously, it's not a very nice looking site. Basically, I've given you all the HTML content for a typical hotel website, but it's not looking very nice because there are no CSS styles. If we bounce around to the other pages, we'll see, again, there's text in there for every page, and there's a certain common structure to the pages. There are headings, there's a navigation area with links, there's subheadings, and there are some testimonials from supposed customers towards the bottom of each page, and so on. So you'll see that consistently in each of these pages, and that'll help us to later style it consistently. Some pages have a little bit of a different set of HTML features, like this one's got a nested unordered list in the reservations policy area. This one has a bunch of unordered lists there as well, and more subheadings within the content area. The frequently asked questions page ends up having paragraphs for the questions and answers. When we look at the HTML for these pages, though, we're going to see a lot of IDs and classes that have been placed already for you. This page, for example, has classes for the question paragraphs and the answer paragraphs, and that will help us to style them uniquely. Lastly, the events page, as you can see, features a calendar table, and you are going to be scheduling some theme-related events during the weekends on your events page as one of your HTML changes. But other than that, your main job here on this page would be to format that table uniquely towards your particular theme. So that's what the pages look like in the browser. Again, your goal here is not to change the way the page reads and what it says, but to change its style. Let's take a look now at this starter site in an editor where we can take a look at the HTML, because of course if you're going to be writing styles, you have to know what selectors to use, and that's all based on the HTML. So let's go back to taking a look at the files here, and we'll bring those into an editor. And I don't want to necessarily put you in any particular direction in terms of editing. You can use whatever editor you like. Okay, so here are the 8 files, 6 web pages, and 2 style sheets. These are the documents that you're given, and of course these are what we're going to be modifying and then later submitting. I'm going to adjust my editor options so that it's a little bit easier to see everything. Okay, so let's take a look here. I'm going to begin with the home page, and we're just going to kind of walk through a little bit of this code so that you can get used to what this is going to look like so that you can better style it. So of course we're dealing with HTML5 based code here, and I'll point out the fact that you've got a title in each of your pages where you're going to put your own name in there. Also in the head section, we should notice that we have both of those style sheets that we were talking about earlier, common and custom, both linked to in the head section of each of those 6 pages. So you don't need to worry about making sure that your pages are going to pick up styles. You just go into, let's say, common.css, and you change a background color for the body, and you know the whole site will pick it up. Now what we want to start noticing here as we move down into the body section is that there are IDs and classes all over the place. The reason those are there are just to possibly anticipate your needs of what you want to style. For example, each of these links has a separate ID in the navigation bar. That doesn't mean you need to use them. You might just want to do something for the nav overall, or nav and A. But if you want to specifically talk about a particular link on a particular page, you could do it. For example, if you want the home page link on the home page look different than any of the other links on the home page, you can take advantage of these IDs and create a proper selector to do so. But what I would like to emphasize is don't go changing the existing class names and IDs. Use them, that way when I grade I can recognize them. So don't get thrown off by the fact that there's IDs and classes all over the place. I'm anticipating some possible things that you might want to do. So as we continue to scroll through here, you'll notice a lot of those. Now this is a separate section that all pages have, and it's called the Testimonials section. And there's a separate article tag. You can think of it as a div tag. It really doesn't do anything on its own, but you'll notice the testimonials are consistently within an article tag in each of the pages. And the ID of testimonials, plural, is there. There's 3 testimonials on each page, and each one of them is set up in a div. The div has a class of testimonial. There are 3 of them with that same class. Here's the second one, and here's the third one. Within each testimonial, you have 2 paragraphs, one where the quote is given and one where the speaker is named. So you have the ability to write a style for .quote and .speaker, and it will end up hitting all the testimonials on all the pages. So make note of those class and ID names because you'll be needing them later when you're writing styles. Okay, so you get kind of an idea of what the HTML looks like. I mentioned about the fact page earlier, so let's go to that. If we look at the section where the questions and answers are, you can see what I was talking about earlier about how these paragraphs have class of question and class of answer. So if you wrote a dot question or a dot answer selector based rule in your style sheet in what would probably be custom.css, because those are only on this one fact page, you could then control how questions look as opposed to answers. You could make the answers stand out more or the questions stand out more and have them styled up in whatever makes sense for you. Maybe different colors, maybe one's bold, one's not, maybe there's different spacing, indentation, whatever you might choose to do. All right, let's come back now to the grading document. I want to talk a little bit about the HTML changes. We talked about the hotel name being changed. We also need a new hotel image. I think you already probably have one from assignment 3, so you'll be plugging that in. A new question and answer at the beginning of the fact page's questions, and you're going to ask the question, how did this hotel get its name or theme, and then you're going to answer that in your own words. So that's one of the few little things that we are going to actually be modifying in the HTML. So you're going to basically, what I would suggest is basically take an existing question answer pair, maybe just copy it, and then just paste it in, and then just replace the existing text. How did your hotel get its whatever theme? And then you can truthfully answer it. How did you come up with that theme, or make something up that might be entertaining about how that hotel came into being, whatever it might be. Okay, so that would satisfy that. Events. At least 5 new calendar events on Fridays or Saturdays fitting the hotel's theme. So we go over to the events page. Remember that the events page is the one with that big table. You can see all the TDs and TRs here. And every one of those normal day calendar table cells has a date. Ours is June, so June 4th, June 5th, June 6th, and so on. And it also has a little div with a class equal event. It currently has a non-breaking space in it just so it's not empty, but you could fill that in with some kind of event that would match the theme of your particular hotel. Something that the hotel might be putting on during that particular day. It can be anything you want, just make it short and brief so it fits the theme and fits into your table cell without stretching it all over the place. And then later you'll be formatting those event texts with some CSS. All right, and then lastly, testimonials. The testimonials appear, 3 of them, on each page. You're asked here to rewrite or add at least 1 new one for each page, except the home page. You can leave those, or you can change those too. But basically, for full credit, I'm looking for 5 new ones, 1 on each of the non-home page pages. It can be any one of the existing 3 that you choose to rewrite. And it makes sense to write them towards whatever the page is about. So if it's the services page, you might write a testimonial like, hey, this place has great service, or something like that. Come up with a funny name or a funny testimonial that relates to your theme as well, and it works well. Okay, now let's get down to the styles, because this is the most important part and where you're going to get most of your points. So let's just take a look at this first one. So once you've got all those HTML changes, you'll be starting to work in your style sheet. 15 page style points. Body styles for the background properties, page margins, top, left, and right, padding, text color, font size, and font family for all normal page text. Other properties are optional. It also says page wrapper styles also go here in this page style section, but are optional. Okay, so basically this is saying if you want these 15 points, you're going to have to write a body-based rule in the page styles section of your common.css style sheet that makes some change to all of these different things. Okay? These are basically free points if you just do what it asks you. They're not suggesting these things. They're saying you've got to do these if you want those points. So you figure there's probably 3 points for each one of these things that's done. I think there's 5 different things. So you can kind of just figure out what you're going to get and what you're not going to get. But you don't have to do anything dramatic here. Just add a little padding, add some margins, set a font size, create what's asked for, and you'll get the points. So let's see how that would work. We go back to our editor. Take a look at common.css. Common.css is asking for you to put your name in a comment here at the top of the style sheet. And then notice that this is set off into separate sections and fully commented to help you. All right, so here's the page style section. It's really important that you put things in the right section so when I grade it I can find it and give you the points. If you have a section that's empty, I'm assuming you don't want any points for that particular section of the requirements. So for page styles, it says on the body you must set color, background, margin, padding. Same thing that the other one said. So notice those things are in sync with one another. As you work down this style sheet, you'll be at the same time working down these separate sections. So I think it's a good idea to just kind of have them both out and be working with them both. So I'm going to write a body style. And again, you can use any editor that works for you. And I'll start setting up my requirements. Alright, so I'll just start with a text color. And it's okay to do something that's not really changing anything. It's just satisfying the requirement. Black is the default color. I'm going to use it anyway. And I'm going to use a light gray background. Margin can be pretty much anything. It said I needed to set the top, left, and right. I can just set 20 pixels for the top and a percentage for the left and right. You can do anything. Don't use the same things I'm using here, just giving you some ideas. Padding, I don't know that we need any padding, so I'll just set it to 0. Font family and font size. So font size, probably a good idea to just stick with 100% here. And then font family probably depends on what your theme is and what font you have in mind, but I'm just going to keep this totally basic here. You can do better than that. But I think my point here is that I've satisfied every one of the things it asked me to do. Okay, and if I save now, I should be able to go back to any of these pages and launch them in the browser and see the improvements as I begin to move towards whatever my theme might be. You can see the font, you can see the 10% left and right margin in place as I change the width of my browser. I'm seeing that 10% change. The colors, black on silver, are there, and so on. Okay, so back to my editor here and back to my style sheet. I would just move on down to the next one. The next section is header, and I would also want to be checking into what it says about header area styles here. 10 points. Styles for the top heading area, which includes the H1, and it should be treated as a banner area. A background can be used, a height given, a logo can be positioned in there, and so on. Okay, so you get 10 points for doing some style changing in there. It's not really specific about exactly what I have to do. It gave me some suggestions. So until I really know what I want to do with that area, I'm not sure that it's clear what I should do with it. Please be sure you're clear on the difference between header and heading. The header is that whole section at the top. So there is, if you look at the HTML, it'll make it a little clearer. The header is this area right there. It actually has a header tag, and there's an H1 inside of it. So that's this area. And then all of the headings, H1 through whatever, are addressed in the next section down. Alright, so let's go back now to the editor and go into Common. And so what might we do? We've got to carefully write a header selector, and then whatever you want to do with that area, separate background, height maybe, once you figure out what's going inside, then you can be better able to write these rules. I'm going to kind of walk you through some of the possible selectors. You'll be able to fill in your own styles with whatever's appropriate later. The heading styles, it says for H1 to H3, we need to set a common font family and color, and for each separately a font size, okay, because you definitely want H3 smaller than H2 and H2 smaller than H1, so on. So this is basically what it's saying you need to do in terms of writing these selectors. Here's the common stuff to the 3. Well, we don't have any headings beyond H3, so we don't need H4, H5, H6. You can add them if you want, but they're not necessary. So I would write that would be like a common color for all of them, common font family for all of them. And then we need separate sizes, so I'll write one separate rule for H1, separate rule for H2, separate rule for H3. So that's what that section is going to look like. You can fill in the details. Introductory paragraph styles are next. Okay, what's going on with that? Intro article, primary article. Use at least one property to differentiate each page's intro text area from the main text. So we just need one property setting there. Let's take a look at the home page to see what that intro area looks like. Okay, the intro area is in an article with an ID of INTRO. So if I want to write a style for it, I would write hashtag intro. That's going to select that article. I don't need to put the article into the selector because it has an ID, so we'll just use the ID. And so, for example, if I wanted to, I'm going to do something that you probably wouldn't want to do, and that would be to give it a different color and make the color an ugly color. I'm trying to do something that you definitely won't want to do. If I do something that's a good idea, then you might copy it. So I'm going to let you use your own creativity here. So back to the browser, and we're going to see this is the intro area on this page, so we should see it turn to an ugly fuchsia color, and there it is. Furthermore, it's going to be on every one of these pages. So you can see that the impact of your change in the style sheet, it's all over the site. But I've satisfied the points, so I should get 5 points for doing that. Now it's so ugly and it might not fit my theme, and so I could lose points down the road for my site design and theme integration, but I won't lose more than the 5 points I got for putting it in there. You can't go negative if you're doing something legit. Alright, next up is the footer styles. So the footer styles, we need 2 properties for, and that's basically this area down here at the bottom. It has the copyright information on each page. And if we look into our editor, we'll see that copyright styles area here. And so that's going to be a footer. Remember, we don't need a hashtag in front of that because the footer is the actual tag name. It's not an ID that we're matching up with on this one. At least 2 properties to de-emphasize the copyright paragraph. So what might you do there? I don't know. You're trying to make the copyright less obvious, so you might decrease its size. You might give it a top margin so it's further away from the rest of the text. You might change its color so that it doesn't stand out as much. Something like that. Next, general link styles, and then navigation bar styles. Okay, at this point, I would like to take a break. Okay, there will be another video that picks up at this point, starts off with the general link styles and navigation bar styles, and continues further down the common.css style sheet and discusses more of this, but I think this is enough probably to get you started and going in the right direction. And it's going to take a while to produce the next video anyway, so this will give you a couple of days to get a good head start on the project, and come back for the second installment of the video series that will take you through the final project's details. Okay, so if you have any questions about anything, you can always email me or post something in the discussion area of the Blackboard. Otherwise, hope you're able to make some progress between now and the next time we continue further with this. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your final projects.